You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with Jacob Morrison.
Lonely dead, stuck, bleeding pig. Lonely did I choose to dead.
Forever. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller. We are let's go to some local news. Adam, what's been going on in Huntsville and Alabama?
Well, there's a lot that's happened just in the last week or so since we were last talking about Huntsville. First, right off the bat, on Monday evening, the Huntsville City Schools is having a special called board meeting to discuss COVID protocols. You may know, those of you who are local, that none of our school districts are enforcing masks for students in the area, but those decisions were made prior to some new guidance that's come out by the Association of Pediatricians, as well as this, new wave that we're in right now, especially with the Delta variant. So those of you who have children in Huntsville City Schools, or those of you just concerned about this new wave and its spread in the community, keep your eyes on that Monday night board meeting with Huntsville City Schools. Now, there was a lot to happen with the Huntsville City Council this past week. And before I dive into that, I do want to mention that we have discussed the case of William Darby, the Huntsville police officer who was convicted of murdering an unarmed civilian, and he did finally resign, I believe, yesterday. It took all this time. It took the Huntsville police chief allegedly soliciting sick leave donations for his boy Darby. I guess he ran out of donated sick leave. He's finally used up all of his vacation days, and he did resign. It's just sort of sad that he makes the choice to resign before the mayor and the police chief actually took some action against a convicted murderer on their police force. So, and on top of that, Paul Gaddis of AL.com put out a good article about the influx of federal COVID funds for the city of Huntsville. We've mentioned that before. While the stimulus bills and COVID relief bills are, of course, inadequate, there has been quite a bit of new money available for local governments and local school systems. Well, the city of Huntsville has apparently spent virtually nothing so far, and is being, quote, very, very conservative with this funding. So check that out. Paul did a good job just diving into, the city's mindset on why they're not really spending that money yet. And I think, those are some opportunities for the city government to actually help regular, normal people. Imagine that. So back to the city council. This Thursday on the 22nd, you had more protests at the city council at City Hall. And in fact, one man was removed and booked for disorderly conduct. There were protests both inside the chambers and outside. And this is the ongoing saga of our fight for criminal justice reform here in Huntsville, Alabama. The so-called Star of Alabama, the so-called Smart City, so-called Progressive City of Alabama, which has thus far shown very little intention in actually having a just criminal justice system. Now, there were two modest reforms, and I say reform kind of loosely here, that were passed on Thursday night. The first one involves the Huntsville Police Citizens Advisory Council, the CAC. That's been an ongoing fight to actually have some teeth behind that council, to have some democratic accountability with this council. You may remember from previous segments that the police chief actually had appointment abilities to this council. So, talking about the Fox Garden, the Hidden House, that was exactly the plan. That has been changed. The Huntsville police chief no longer has the ability to appoint members to the advisory council. That's good. There's going to be some additional members added, some additional training provided to the council. The jury's still out on, how that's going to actually change things moving forward, but it at least appeared to be a modest step in the right direction. Now, the other issue that was discussed was body cam footage. And again, this one is even I guess, more modest. In other words, it accomplished very little. There was a promise for transparency about releasing body cam footage, but no real concrete steps they were going to take. As far as I could tell, it looked like the city was just promising that they will, in fact, have some kind of policy that they will openly share. What that's going to look like, remains to be seen. So really want to shout out the good activists who are fighting that fight and staying engaged for well over a year now on this particular avenue of reform, but it's been many years in the making. So shout out to them. The next work session of the Huntsville City Council is August 5th. So if you get a chance, tune into the meeting that took place Thursday. You can watch those meetings online. You can catch up afterwards. So that's a convenient way to stay informed.
Yeah, I'll do that.
The North Alabama School for Organizers is holding an automotive free clinic at Futures Homeless Shelter in Huntsville on Saturday, August 21st from 9 to 12. Volunteers are, of course, requested, as are donations. NASO will not charge the poor or homeless, as they offer light repairs to vehicles, including oil changes and teaching folks how to change a flat tire. I think that's a great mutual aid program that they are implementing. And of course, we've had Zach Henson on to discuss Automotive Free Clinic down in the Montgomery-Prattville area. So shout out to North Alabama School of Organizers for putting this on to benefit poor and homeless working folks who need reliable transportation. And that's something that I think is a good lesson for all of us. Whatever skills you may have, there is a way for you to contribute that to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Today, on the 24th of July at 3 o'clock at the Madison County Courthouse, there is a Medicare for All March. Now, Jacob and I talked offline a little bit about this, that nationally, some of the folks involved with this Medicare for All March today, leave something
odd
to be inspired. There are a few online weirdos, it appears, to be involved in some of these marches across the country. But I do know that locally, our sister Catherine Herford is behind this march here in Huntsville, and I have the utmost respect for her. So if you have nothing else going on this afternoon, come downtown to Huntsville, to the courthouse, and march on behalf of Medicare for All, because it is insane that we are the only wealthy country on earth that does not guarantee health care as a human right.
Yep.
So shout out to these local activists for demonstrating to that point. Now, moving back a little bit to the statewide perspective, Alabama Poor People's Campaign is joining at least 40 other states for a Moral Monday to take the fight for democracy to U.S. senators' home offices. So on Monday, August 26th, they will be visiting Senator Shelby and Senator Tuberville's offices in Montgomery. And then the Poor People's Campaign will air a collection of these actions from across the country online that evening at 7 o'clock Central Time. I'm a big fan of Reverend Barber and what he has worked on with the Moral Mondays coming out of North Carolina, as well as the Poor People's Campaign. So happy to see Alabama holding it down with the campaign. Also, August 24th, the Libertarian Party of Alabama and Vermin Supreme, among other guests, will be in Montgomery. And I have a lot of problems with the Libertarian Party and their ideology. They tend not to be the most pro-union, pro-working class kind of folks. But on this issue, I really appreciate what they're doing. They have taken the Alabama Secretary of State to court. And what they are fighting for is truly ballot access, is a fair shot for third-party and independent candidates here in the state of Alabama. Specifically, they are fighting to get access to the voter registration list that is provided by our Secretary of State. Our system here in Alabama especially, but, and most of the country as well, is really designed to be a two-party system. It is designed to exclude independent and third-party candidates. So kudos to them for fighting that good fight. And lastly, I think it may be worth mentioning that our governor, Kay Ivey, is getting a lot of national press these days. She made some comments expressing frustration about the unvaccinated here in Alabama and blaming them for this current spike in cases. Now, her role in that, she doesn't seem to have a whole lot to talk about there. She kind of just threw her hands up and made it out like she's just an ordinary citizen who's just as frustrated as we are.
Right.
The difference being she is in charge of Alabama state government. So, I just thought that was kind of interesting. I understand the frustration, but again, you are governor. You have an entire executive branch. You have a budget. You have a bully pulpit. You have an entire team of experts. So, I thought that was a little bit interesting that, for one thing, she kind of revealed the frustration and probably pissed off some of her Republican allies, but at the same time revealed just how, little initiative she's showing to address the problem.
Right.
And as others have covered in response to this story, she has catered to the anti-vaccination crowd and to the anti-lockdown crowd with legislation. And of course, her political career, like all others in this state, has benefited from the massive right-wing media apparatus, which peddles disinformation and propaganda on stations such as this one, to be quite honest. So, it's fascinating for her to put that out there and to act as if she's just an ordinary Alabamian who can't really do anything about it. As I just mentioned at the top of the segment, we've got school systems having to decide about mask usage in their buildings. The governor is nowhere to be found and showing leadership there. And, oh, by the way, what if we had an extra 300,000 people with health insurance because we expand Medicaid?
Right.
The governor, again, has no answers to expand Medicaid. She has been saying for years, just like Governor Bentley before her, that they just have to find the money.
Right.
Now, they can find the money for virtually anything else that they want to find it for, but when it comes to expanding health care and ensuring 300,000 of our neighbors who are working people can actually go to the doctor, now suddenly that's a mystery they just can't solve. And now I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, but I have to believe that if an additional 300,000 people could go to the doctor and could treat pre-existing conditions, maybe, just maybe, they would be a little less susceptible to COVID and to complications from COVID. But that's just me.
Right. Well, and there's, like you said, it's one thing to express as a citizen of this state, to express frustration with other citizens of the state. Like, I even, generally speaking, I try to shy away from that, from like pointing my ire at like conservative or liberal voters or whatever for this or that. I try to think about, okay, what are the systems that produce this outcome? But certainly as a leader of a state, as a leader of a party that is pushing lots of like nonsense. I mean, the Alabama the Alabama Federation of Republican Women just hosted Marjorie Taylor Greene in Dothan yesterday or the day before that. She is one of the worst about the vaccination nonsense, saying that asking about her vaccination status is a violation of her HIPAA rights. I mean, it's just absurd, and so you've got lots of acting as if she has no idea where this vaccine hesitancy is coming from. Broadly speaking, it's coming from people with power, not either like not talking about vaccines in a truthful way, just not addressing the issue and having a hands-off approach, or really diving in and saying that, and stoking some of these fears about the vaccine, because they are, by and large, totally false. And, like, we only have an hour and a half every week, so we don't talk about that kind of stuff, because we are like a generally focused show on workers' issues. And so, like, we don't have the time to spend going into the data, but the data is out there. There are experts, and, like, you can actually see the vaccines work. They help keep you from getting the coronavirus, and they, even more than that, they help keep you from getting a serious illness from the coronavirus. They protect yourself and your communities and your families. And like, that's important. And for her to just say we need to blame the unvaccinated people, that's absurd. And then additionally to that, there are people that are not vaccine hesitant. There are people that don't have the time to go and get vaccinated, because we just got off the phone with Hayden and Braxton talking about how these coal miners in Alabama, they were, before this contract expired, working 7 days a week. When are you going to go get a vaccine if you have to work 7 days a week? And then when you're off work, you have to go and take your children to school, or you've got to take them to the hospital, or there are lots of people that just don't have the time to do that. And so there are ways that she could, as governor, use the health department to make sure that people get paid time off to go and get the vaccine, paid time off to go to have a day to recover from getting the vaccine, because sometimes you'll have cold-like symptoms after you get the vaccine. I mean, just
right. What if we actually had paid sick leave in this state like every other civilized place on earth?
Her acting like she's just this powerless, regular citizen of Alabama is just frankly disgusting. And
it's an admission. It is a very blunt admission of her lack of ability.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with Jacob Morrison.
All workers deserve fair wages, affordable health care, and a retirement plan that enables them to retire with dignity. All workers deserve to have a say about the terms and conditions of their employment, not just the bosses. With the machinist union's over 600,000 members having our back, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama has been serving workers' interests for over 20 years. Our members have the best health insurance in the area with zero deductible plans. We set the bar for pay in the area with over $40 an hour rates, consistently averaging the highest non-college degree jobs in North Alabama with some of the best retirement plans in the industry. We can do the same for you. Together, we remain united, raising our voices to ensure justice on the job and service in the community. The Machinist Union is a true Southern union founded in Atlanta in 1888. We have been serving members' needs for 132 years. The longevity of our union proves our dedication and loyalty to the working class. The Machinist Union isn't just for machinists. We represent workers in government, healthcare, auto workers, aerospace workers, transportation workers, the defense industry, and woodworking. Our members even build the iconic Harley-Davidson motorcycles. If you're ready to get serious about better benefits and wages, if you want to have a voice in your workplace with over 600,000 members to back you up, call or email us today at 256-286-3704 or organize at iamaw44.org.
If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments and release them throughout the week. We upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, you can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. We have a website where you can buy our hats and our stickers. We've only got about 12 hats left, so make sure you get one before they're gone. That's thevalleylaborreport.org. And finally, if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.